I'm delighted to be joined by Gary Monaghan. What's the biggest issue you see that they have today?
I'm going to use the word control because a lot of these, or from in my opinion, what I've been observing is they don't necessarily provide the next new car for the consumer either. 20, 30 years ago, dealers have always managed, comes to where we come in used cars, grab the attention of the consumer to hit their website. So you need to give the dealer or equip the dealer with the tools to keep that consumer in that journey, in their journey, rather than allow it to drift off into other platforms.
Welcome to Dealer Tech Talk, where we explore how technology is transforming dealerships. I'm Simon Verona, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Gary Monaghan, founder and CEO of Digital Remarketing Solutions and the team, part of the team behind Freeway Motors. Gary's built something that is genuinely different, dealer-first digital infrastructure that helps retailers embrace online convenience without losing control of the customer relationship. This podcast is sponsored by DMS Navigator, the dealer management system to help you be more efficient, deliver better customer service, and improve profits. And also by My Auto Companion, increasing customer retention, keeping buyers connected, and improving lifetime customer income and profit. And welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for the invitation.
No, really good to see you here today. I think first of all, I think a lot of my viewers probably won't be too aware of who you are or what you do for them. So maybe to start off with, maybe kind of the 30-second sort of elevator style pitch about what you do for dealers and how they can benefit from working with you. Sure,
no problem. Well, I've been involved in the automotive industry for well over 30 years, Simon. Didn't start in tech. I started in leasing, where I worked in the remarketing department. So I did all the return, the collections, the damage recharge, the setting of the reserves, and then ultimately the disposal through the at that time physical auction. But what that gave me was the knowledge of the flow of that process, which was very manual in those days, including paper vehicle inspection reports, T-card systems, things like that. So I took that grounding and questioned why do we do it this way, and can we make it more digital? So I set about doing that, and I built an inventory management system which was ultimately designed for the leasing sector, but ultimately ended up working for manufacturers and the OEMs. So that's where I got my experience from OEMs, because I've learned the flow from manufacturing vehicles to the importer, to the distribution, to the dealer network, and how the dealer network needs to keep the stock fluid at dealer level to buy more cars from the manufacturer. So yeah, it was a good experience, which gave me the knowledge to build the systems that we do now, because ultimately we understand how these things work in the commercial world, if that makes sense. Brilliant.
I guess fantastic. Talking about dealers, and obviously you work with dealers, when you were discussing with dealers, talking to dealers, what's the biggest issue you see that they have today?
The number one for me, I think, ultimately stock sourcing at the minute. There are other areas, I guess, that have the challenges, but ultimately stock sourcing. And I think that's more prevalent now, because if you go back to 2020, and dare I say that COVID word, if there's no new car production for 3 years, then it ultimately means that there's less used cars coming back 3 years following that period. And I think that's what we're seeing now, is a number of, the new car supply is returning, but we won't see the effect of that until 26, 27, when those volumes come through as used cars. So ultimately today, we've got a shortage of used cars. And to add to that, we've got increased competition on the dealers have. There are a lot of car buying services that are not necessarily retailers. They're fulfillment for remarketing channels. So ultimately they're after the same vehicles that the dealers are after to put through their infrastructure, which ultimately may have a buyer's fee attached to that. So yeah, sourcing is a challenge at the minute, I think.
Yes, I guess even the ones that are buying from the public and then remarketing, all the dealer is seeing is an inflated cost to them because it's gone through an extra channel before they get it effectively.
Yeah, totally.
I noticed when I was reading up about you that you used the word on the phraseology of dealer first digital. What is dealer first digital? What does that mean to you, and why does that matter?
I'm going to use the word control because a lot of these, or from in my opinion, what I've been observing is other service providers position themselves in between the dealer and the consumer. They don't necessarily provide the next new car for the consumer either. They're simply offering a disposal service. So for me, dealers have always, if you go back 20, 30 years ago, dealers have always managed the consumer from finance, from after sales, from part exchanges. But over the years, I've observed, take for example, tyres, batteries, and exhausts. That's outsourced to Quick Fit now and those types of operations where it used to be a dealer operation as an after sales service. And finance, you don't necessarily have to get your finance through a dealer anymore. You can go to an independent who are purely putting together the finance package outside of the dealer world. So and there's nothing wrong with that, I'm not criticising that, but ultimately when it comes to where we come in used cars, is the dealer pays marketing to grab the attention of the consumer to hit their website. And so you need to give the dealer or equip the dealer with the tools to keep that consumer in that journey, in their journey, rather than allow it to drift off into other platforms. So rather than put a fulfillment service around what we offer, we simply give the technology to the dealer to manage their customer and allow them to keep control of the customer, the margin, and the retail deal.
So I presume, okay, that's the key thing in there that I heard. Of course, a lot of these, these other service providers, they're only dealing with one part of the consumer transaction. And generally, if a consumer is selling a car, more often than not, he's buying a car. If he's financing a car, then that's obviously that's in the buying side. At selling a car to that person, he's probably got a part exchange that he wants to get rid of somewhere. And I think that what you're saying is the problem there is through all these third parties, but dealing just with one part of the transaction, the dealer who's actually fulfilling that part is not able to see the other half of the transaction. They can either buy a car but have no visibility of what the customer is doing in terms of buying his new car, because they're disconnected from that, and vice versa. If it's coming, say, from a finance provider, they get the car they're selling, but they don't really understand what's happening with the part exchange. So they're losing the opportunity on both sides.
I agree with that, and I think where a lot of focus has been on, retail sales in terms of describing the car accurately with 40, 50 images and great, websites with all these finance applications built in. But when it comes to the part exchange, it seems to be just a web form that comprises of a registration number, a mileage, and contact details. Some will give a valuation, but sometimes that can be a disadvantage to the dealer, because if they're trying to give a valuation based on a descriptive piece of text from the consumer that says, I think my car's in average condition, then essentially if you give an algorithm price based on average condition, ultimately those customers have been elsewhere anyway and researched the market, and other providers will give a clean valuation as an unseen vehicle to attract the customer into the negotiation with them first, and then adjust the price thereafter for condition and spec. So we're looking to change that and empower the dealers to be able to extract more data for the consumer in order to return a more personalised valuation based on condition and spec.
Okay, so I'm guessing that that's what your digital remarketing solutions company does in terms of allowing the dealer to do that. Tell me a little bit how that actually works in practice. I mean, what's the digital journey that a consumer and dealer go through in terms of that part of the solution you offer?
Yeah, it's fairly simple. There's no heavy IT involvement, which is good news for the dealers. And it doesn't necessarily have to replace the form that they've already got for that light touch of data capture, such as name, address, registration number and mileage. We simply plug in our technology as part of that user journey, giving the consumer the choice to either ultimately take the vehicle to the dealer to receive a final valuation based on condition. But if it's not, a good time for the consumer, or there's geography involved where the dealer's too far away, they've got the new car that they want, but they're 50, 60 miles away, and the consumer's not prepared to drive 50, 60 miles to understand what their vehicle is worth, then that's where we offer the choice to the consumer to remain and engage with that dealer by saying, well, if you click on this link or scan this QR code, then you can actually perform a remote self-assessment of your own vehicle on your driveway to provide the dealer the opportunity to review the cosmetic condition of your vehicle remotely, and in return be able to offer a condition-based valuation as opposed to an algorithm price.
Okay, so it allows you to capture that customer details straight away, get an accurate data to actually do a good evaluation, so you're not then chipping the customer later on. And obviously you're putting the customer in quite an early stage, I guess, so you have the opportunity to sort of say what car you're buying as well, and actually then engage the other half of the journey as well.
Absolutely, because ultimately the part exchange price is a big factor in the cost of change. So the higher you can give, the more money you can give for the part exchange, the less you have to discount off the retail price. And let's be honest, you can't really discount much more off the retail price anymore, because the internet and the price indicators are actually, to compete for that customer in the first place, you've got to give your very best retail price. So, being able to control the valuation on the part exchange and give strong money, if it's a car that you want for retail stock and go again with, then ultimately the idea is to drive down the cost of change to the customer, make it affordable, and then potentially even get them more passed on finance, because the monthly payments are cheaper.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. That makes a good deal of sense. So, I mean, obviously, you're, in the dealers are using similar services from people like Motorway or CarWow. I'm guessing your solution actually complements those solutions as well, in terms of what they do. Where do you see the difference between the two?
I think dealers support those services because they are a source of inventory. But if you really study that in detail, these suppliers, they don't. I think dealers have a real advantage. They've got the car the customer wants. They've got the next new car the customer wants. If the customer starts to place vehicles on Motorway and CarWow, which is fine, and I get that logic, but ultimately it breaks a single journey for the consumer where they could do a key for key exchange with the dealer if the dealer was able to give more money for the part exchange. By going to these other services, then for the consumer, they have to do two transactions. They have to transact with one of these service providers to dispose of their car, and then go back and then be without a vehicle for a period of time, and then go and try and source the new car. And so there's a bit of friction, I think, there for consumers, whereas a dealer could actually do all that transaction in one and offer a seamless experience, providing that they can meet the expectation of the part exchange valuation. Which leads me on to, if the car that's being offered in part exchange is a nice retailable car where the dealer will go again, I'm guessing the dealer will give and spend a lot of time trying to acquire that vehicle, because it's almost like a double transaction for them. They sell a new car and they gain a new car for stock to go again. Mm-hmm. But if it's not a car for them, and let's say it's a 7-year-old 60, 70, 80,000 mile Nissan Qashqai that doesn't fit that dealer's profile, I question how serious they are about valuing that vehicle, or whether it's just a an average valuation they give, which ultimately pushes the consumer elsewhere because they've already done the research and know they can get more money for that vehicle. Whereas if they, work that lead harder on the part exchange, and I'm coming on to the point now why we built Freeway Motors, because ultimately we recognise that all dealers won't be able to buy every part exchange if it doesn't fit their retail profile. But what they could do is we've made it so that they can share the profile of that consumer vehicle into a wider network where it might just reach the next retailer of that vehicle that do retail 6-year-old 60, 70, 80,000 mile cash cars. But ultimately, it's allowing that dealer who's got the engagement with the consumer in the first place to say, we don't buy that vehicle, but if you leave it with me for 24 hours, we're going to share the profile that you've created for us. We're going to position that into a network of trusted retailers who do retail that vehicle. We'll obtain an underwrite, and it might be that, the initial dealer might think the car's only worth £3,000, but to another retailer, they might think, well, that's £4,500, so we'll offer £4,500. Then there's an extra £1,500 to put into the margin, into the deal, to bring down the cost of change, to allow that dealer to be able to maximise every opportunity and give the consumer a seamless transaction.
Yeah, that's really clever. I like that. So yeah, I love that. So it's actually allowing a dealer to not lose the sale of the outgoing car purely because the part exchange that's being offered to him is not one that he wants or wants to take a risk with. He can actually put that out through the Freeway marketplace, allow other dealers to underwrite it where maybe they are fitting that and do want that stock, and let them to carry on and do the deal and still actually do a deal with the customer. So I like that. That's brilliant.
Correct.
That's genius.
And to add maybe a little bit more icing to the cake, there's no buyers or sellers fees for Freeway, which means that the audience that's looking at that vehicle for underwrite can absolutely give strong money for the cars because there's no other charge other than logistics, which means, again, they can help out the original dealer by giving strong money and then ultimately drive down the cost of change, as I said, and make it more affordable and seamless for the consumer.
So the ultimate beneficiary there is the consumer is getting a better deal because of going through that process.
Well, it's simplifying the process for the consumer because they've engaged once with the dealer. It's making it simpler for the dealer to assess a vehicle that might not necessarily come in at that point if the consumer's not ready to visit the dealership at that point in time. But it allows the dealer to get more data to assess the valuation of that vehicle from a condition-based, cosmetic condition-based. And then ultimately, again, for the dealer is with a single click, if it's not a car for them, they can share that vehicle profile with a wider community to assist in the underwriting process. And this idea was not just sort of me waking up one morning and think that might be a good idea. It's born from experiences where I myself have been into dealerships with part exchanges, physical on a Sunday afternoon, and they've rang up a group buyer and said, I can't get hold of the group buyer, so can you come back tomorrow? Or we only think your car's worth this. And they bid conservatively because they're not the experienced group buyer. But to me, as a consumer, well, I'm not going back there because they've offered me less money than I've been able to source on the internet. So I'm going to go I'm going to follow the money. And equally, Simon, I've done some, genuine, I won't call them mystery shopping, but genuine inquiries where I've been looking for a car myself. And the dealer's been in London. I've described my part exchange, and they've said, can you bring it to see me? And I'm not going to travel 200 miles based on who might buy my part exchange. So
it's a long way to go just in case, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's forced me to go to local dealers where I may be more motivated to do that journey. There's an example, I had a Range Rover that I'd had for 3 years, and I wanted to trade it, and the dealer was, I'll name them, JCT 600 in Bradford. They had a BMW that I was interested in, I put my Range Rover on them sites that would give me valuations, £28,000, which is what I got as a valuation. I spoke to the dealer in Bradford and said, if I can send you a link to the profile of my Range Rover, would you have a look at the price for me? So I sent the link to them. They assessed the vehicle. Fortunately, they had a Land Rover franchise within group. They then passed on the link to their group buyer, and they come back with £32,000. So that was a £4,000 increment over the average I've had of £28,000. And what that did is the new BMW that I bought was £35,000, and it was a £3,000 transaction to change. But that could have been a lot more had I have done a broken journey. And equally, Simon, there's been experiences where, dealers have said to me, the salespeople, it's not a car we will buy for part exchange, Gary, but have you tried motorway or Carwell?
Yeah, that's great, Gary. That's I can get how that would work here in the real world. It sounds like you're very much like me and test out what you're doing with systems by actually mystery shopping dealers and seeing how they react to things in the real world. Which I do very, very often as well. So I'm guessing that gives a good opportunity for dealers where today they're actually actively pushing dealers back out to some of those third-party services if they can't give a bid to a customer on a part exchange. Today they might be saying, it's not really a car for us. Maybe you should be trying We Buy Any Car, or maybe put it out to Carwell. It allows them to keep them within their own kind of dealership sphere.
Yeah, and again, Simon, I've had some experiences of that recently where genuinely looked to try and part exchange my car against a new vehicle, and because it's not a vehicle that fits that dealer's retail profile, they've actually suggested, have you tried, We Buy Any Car or motorway, and essentially giving me back the problem. So I then obviously, got to solve my own problem by selling my car first before I can go back to them, which I might not never do now, because essentially I might have a second thought that says, well, actually I found another car now. Whereas if that dealer would have sort of helped me and said, okay, we can help you with that, then I probably wouldn't have shopped anywhere else, because I would have felt that someone's actually working the opportunity and helping me, assist me by changing my car and disposing of my other my part exchange. So interesting. And that, I guess, living through the customer experience and looking at that friction is what's led me to sort of design these new pieces of tech to overcome that, not to replace, but just to make it more seamless and frictionless, not just for the consumer, also for the dealer as well.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Thinking of the dealer as well, I'm guessing, just thinking about it, that Freeway has a secondary job as well, or within the dealership, is it can give them ability to deal with stock management and overage cars, and give them an opportunity to move those cars on quite easily to other dealers where they might be more useful for them.
Absolutely, and I'll be honest, Simon. There are other platforms that are built for that, for trading of overage stock. But where Freeway's primary cause is to work further upstream, so whilst the vehicle's still in the control of the consumer before it even becomes physical at the dealership. But you're right, if that car becomes physical at the dealership and they want to send it onto Freeway, they can do. But here's the thing, we don't mind powering some of these other platforms either. So essentially the admin portal that we create for viewing the remote self-assessments that we create is almost like a switchboard that says, actually, yes, you can put your car to Freeway, you can push your cars to other platforms, and because we don't make a buyers or sellers fees off that, we're free to do that. So we can integrate in and make it even easier for the dealer to distribute that stock, and giving that dealer the choice, not sort of forcing them into the way we want them to behave, but saying, well, it's your platform, your data, a bit like you, Simon, and DMS Navigator. you're flexible, and you can actually allow the dealer to make the choices in the way that they want to run their business, not try and shoehorn them into an operational process that you're selling.
Yeah, I think that's, I think it goes back. I think it goes back to that dealer first concept you said to start with. It allows a dealer to choose the journey they want to and keep control of that journey. And it's similar to the journey that I go through. In my day job, I think part of me is what we do is to make the journey at the dealer end, but also linking to the consumer much, much, much simpler. So, I mean, from our perspective, if you think about, give an example, putting it into your concept in what you're doing with the appraisal, if you've got a dealer, a customer that you're talking to, say on the telephone, who's rung in asking about a new car that he wants to buy, and you're discussing with him, okay, we got a part exchange, and he goes, yeah, I've got one. What do you think it's worth? You can, from within our system, the way we would do that is have a little button within our CRM that allows you to automatically upload it into a platform like yours. The customer would then get an email to say, do your remote appraisal. The remote appraisal would then come back into our solution, and that's kind of how we would work to join that, make that journey as simple for the consumer, but also really, really easy for the dealer to do that. Which kind of leads me in, I think, to kind of think things. Obviously, you've got these platforms up. What's your next thing? I mean, is integration? You talked about integration with third parties in terms of other trade platforms. Is that a big thing that moving forward about joining that up into other ecospheres?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned some great points there, Simon, in respect to the dealer's DMS, because I'm now again thinking that the dealers control deals through a central system, which is a DMS or a CRM system. And it's even though we've got a good piece of tech to enrich that part exchange journey, we don't want to create friction that it's another system for the dealer to actually use in the dealership. And secondly, typically for the remote self-assessment at the minute, it takes the consumer about 5 minutes. They don't even really know that they're doing an appraisal because we've made it that simple for them to actually engage. And we've done over 9,000 consumer appraisals now, so we know that the front end application is correct. But the advantage of working with integration is that I've looked at the first page of the remote self-assessment that we provide, and it's very, very similar in terms of data capture that you would track in a DMS or a CRM, such as the registration number, the mileage, the customer's email address and mobile number. So what that allows us to do is to take that information that's been captured by the dealer at source and start the appraisal on behalf of the consumer to trigger an event like an email or an SMS to the consumer to say, you don't need to put your registration number in again or tell us your details, we've already done that for you. All you really need to do now is add the images in a structured way that we've asked you to and just answer these final questions. So that 5-minute appraisal now becomes a 2-minute job, so it's even quicker.
Yeah, so you're literally making it much, much quicker for the consumer. And certainly one of my complaints that I deal with from dealers all the time when I'm talking to them is the system overload, number of systems they have to use to actually get a deal done. And I've got personal experience, same way as you have. I've been to dealers to buy cars, and I'm always mesmerised how many different systems a sales exec has got to type the consumer details in, the car details and the part exchange details in so many different touch points. You've got the CRM, you've got the finance proposal, you've got the part exchange appraisal, you've got, if you're going, as a new dealer, a new car that's being bought, the configurator for the manufacturer often asks for customer details, and you've got, and it just feels so disjointed. It's hard work for the sales exec, but worse than that, the customer sees it. He can feel that there's that friction in there all the time, and if and by joining sort of systems together and handing over nice and easy makes it easy for the sales exec. It makes the process simple, and it gets used more. I think that's the ultimate. You will find that you are using that, and I've seen it where where a sales exec or people in the dealership will actually think, oh God, if I do that, that means I've then got to go and load that into another system. So I'll tell you what. what I do. I just tell the customer to go and do something else. I'll go and tell them, ring me buy any car because it's easier for me, and it obviously removes that friction completely in there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, right, just so kind of wrapping up, I think if you were to sort of have a dealer sitting in front of you today, what's the one bit of advice you would give them, something that they can do today to make their life better in kind of this whole area?
I'm a big advocate of try things and fail, because until you try them and you fail, you don't know whether they're going to work for you. But that requires effort. And I heard a phrase the other day: to get something that you want, you have to do something you never did. And there's loads of these analogies I think are great. And Thomas Edison is another one who invented the light bulb. He got it wrong 10,000 times. So some would see that as failure. But he sort of said, well, that's 10,000 reasons where I got it wrong to get to the 10,001st where I got it right. So my advice to dealers is be open, review your part exchange journey, challenge the process yourself. Is it enough? Do you get enough data from the consumer to actually be able to give them a valuation? And take advantage of trials, because free trials will give you that experience to know whether it works for you. And even if it doesn't work for you, you can give constructive feedback. One of the things we like is we think that we've got it right, but there's always a little nugget of information that says we never quite thought of that. We're going to take that on board and we're going to refine our proposition because we overlooked that, and we'll put that into the next edition.
Yeah, I think that's. I think that trialing, and I'm guessing from that you offer a trial. So, we'll put your details into the show notes so that people can link to you if they want to try you out.
Absolutely, and we do the trial because we're so confident. We've got good proof of concept now and case studies, and a free trial is just the confidence in our ability that we deliver.
Thank you, Gary, for joining me today. I think that's been really awesome. I think I've certainly learned a lot during this discussion, and see how dealers can really start to take control of that whole acquisition of cars in that area for consumers. We've also got some dealer guides that and there'll be one relating to this episode. It's available on our website, https:/www.dealertechtalk.uk/guides. Finally, thank you for listening to this Dealer Tech Talk. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you look for your episodes, including YouTube. And thank you again to our sponsors, DMS Navigator and Miles Companion. I'm Simon Verona. Join me again next time for more information about how we can simplify dealer success through using technology. And that's a wrap. You can click stop now.